When I first encountered the Grimm Troupe in Hollow Knight, I was a bit taken aback by the discrepancy between the DLC and the rest of the game. After playing through it and contemplating a bit later, I think I found some interesting concepts that made this experience quite memorable in the grand scheme of things. So let's get to the heart of this issue. First off, let's have a quick history lesson, or in this case, a background check. It's not a surprise that the character of Grimm draws inspiration from Dracula, from the way he dresses and the color scheme, to the cult-like behavior surrounding him and his troupe, and the mysterious bat shape-shifting. But the parallels may lie even deeper than that. The character of Dracula is inspired by the real-life Romanian ruler Vlad the Impaler, whose cruel character has been actually diminished in popular culture. Spoiler, he wasn't a tall, romantic and mysterious figure, but rather a sadistic war criminal. Maybe it sounds familiar. Vlad the Impaler was the ruler of a small portion of Romania, having a habit of killing political messengers by very brutal means, the most well-known of which would be, as the name suggests, impaling. He was a character that enjoyed inflicting terror in others, whether that be enemies or his own clan. His most renowned battle was the night attack at Târgoviște, in which he and his troops disguised themselves as the enemy's troops, kind of like putting on a mask, managing to kill a big portion of them, by also later setting their tents on fire. Even the name Dracula has an interesting meaning to it. Vlad Dracul, meaning dragon, was the Impaler's father, and the nickname Dracula literally translates to the son of the dragon. And we know that the major theme in Grimm's story is the relationship between a father and his child. I'll get into detail about that a bit later. So I think I can say with confidence that Grimm's connection to the vampire myth is not as shallow as just marketing him as a Tumblr sexy boy. The world of nightmares is small compared to the world of dreams, both in-game and in real life, as nightmares encompass only 2.5% of all dreams. It's important to note that nightmares and bad dreams are not the same thing. While the most common themes remain consistent, failure, hopelessness, interpersonal conflicts and of course physical aggression, bad dreams don't cause the dreamer to wake up in fear. Nightmares are also more intense and abruptly or tragically, and are based more so on primal fears rather than a range of complex psychological anxieties. This underlines perfectly the similarities between Grimm and the Radiance, as I discussed about her in my previous video. But there are major differences as well. While the moss power comes from the hopes and dreams of bugs, the Scarlet Flame grows from the fear and anxiety of bugs, the ones who lost all hope and are voluntarily focusing on these basic emotions. Even C recognizes this dichotomy. The expanse of dream in past was split. One realm must now stay apart, darkest reaches, beating red, terror of sleep, the nightmare's heart. This is referring to Nightmare King Grimm, not the Troupe Master. Grimm is basically eaten alive by the Scarlet Flame through this ritual to feed his own nightmare, and the concoction that beats rapidly like the terror it feeds off of. He and his troupe are possibly able to interact with the nightmare world through the power of masks, as the mask maker mentions, but only partially, as his followers are still transparent, therefore representing the lingering fear in the waking world. Grimm, on the other hand, serves as a vessel for this unholy ritual, a puppet of his own fears, a concept common in interpreting mental illness, letting yourself be consumed by your darkest thoughts, living in a constant nightmare, and unfortunately passing it down to the next generation. Children are more likely than adults to have nightmares, but there's also a big genetic component to it, as nightmare frequency has a heritability between 36 and 51%. We also know that often forms of mental illness are genetic. For example, anxiety disorders with 26%. Looking at the ritual through this lens, the expression "burn the father, feed the child" encompasses a whole new meaning. Parents overwhelmed with negative emotions are passing it down to their kids while also slowly getting consumed by them. Or there's a hopeless cycle of terror that is perpetuated by the toxic environment the people live in. In my opinion, it's a combination of both, but let's focus a bit on the latter. Bram, a person whose whole role in this ritual is not that well known, is trying to stop this from happening, like a friend whose attempts at helping a struggling buddy leave them hopeless themselves. The problem with his plan is that it is temporary. The troupe will move on without him or the knight. It seems like Grimm's future is doomed either way, but maybe we can stop this from happening to the Grimm child. By taking them out of that toxic environment through completing the ritual, we might have a chance to free them from their suffering. Well, except for the fact that, in any ending of the game, the knight is kind of consumed by either void or light, so probably the kid doesn't survive either way. So it quite possibly is a tale with no good ending. I also wanted to mention that one of the big updates with the Grimm Troupe DLC is the Path of Pain, and aside from the perfectly fitting name for strengthening my theory, is it a coincidence that the major theme at the end is the doomed relationship between a father and his child? Now the phrase dance and die and live forever took a whole new meaning, but I leave that up to you. What do you think? Is the Grimm Troupe a metaphor for anxiety, or maybe a tale of a phoenix-like creature? Or have I just wasted your time by over-speculating on minor details of the game? Either way, thank you for sticking till the end. Let me know what other ideas of games you'd like me to cover. Check out my other stuff in the meantime, and I'll see you next time.